E.N.D here. Thassa Deep Dwelling is one of the Theros Beyond Dead gods that have the most interesting and, in my opinion, useful ability. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to one other target creature control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. That particular ability you can do it on every turn, even if Thassa, it's not a creature, even if Thassa does not have the devotion to blue, it's the enchantment ability. That particular ability, simple as it sounds, is a very, very useful, and a lot of players are talking about that particular ability. Why? Because I have already discussed, and I have done a video, the interaction with Thassa and cards like Claim the Firstborn and Act of Treason. When you play these two cards and you steal one of your opponent's creature, when you blink it with Thassa, that creature exits the battlefield, goes into exile, returns back, and when it returns back, the rule that binds that creature to return it back to the opponent or to his owner, it's removed. So you can imagine how strong this card is. Now, I'm going to show you another example, interaction with Thassa, and this time not your opponent's creature, but your opponent's commander. Let's take as an example, Kenrith, the Return King. It's a legendary creature. It can be a commander, and let's say this particular card is your opponent's commander. And let's put it here in play. So let's build the battlefield. Let's put, first of all, for example, I'm going to put the zones. Here we have the exile and here we have the command zone. Because now I'm going to tell you, whenever the commander is put in exile, the owner of the commander has the right to leave it in exile or put it in the commander zone. And now I'm going to explain everything, how this particular interaction works. Let's first build our battlefield. We have Thassa, we have some lands here. Okay, so in camera, we have some lands, and let's say we're going to play Act of Treason. We're going to play Act of Treason, we're going to tap 3 lands needed. We're going to play Act of Treason. Act of Treason, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, gains haste until end of turn, and you have to return it, at the end of your turn. So you're going to play Act of Treason, and I'm going to target Kenrith, the Returned King. So I target Kenrith, the Returned King. Kenrith, the Returned King becomes under my control, and I have to return it back at the end of my turn. But at the beginning of my end step, okay, at the beginning, so Kenrith is still in my control at this stage. At the beginning of my end step, exile up to one other creature you control. So I control Kenrith and I can exile Kenrith. So I'm going to exile Kenrith and put it into exile. And Kenrith is in exile. Then return it under your control. So I have already discussed that this particular ability does not give priority. And not giving priority means that the card is exiled and returned immediately as the ability resolves. I've discussed this in details in my first video. Have a look at that video if you want to understand that rule much better. But this time we're going to discuss interaction with commander. So I'm going to exile the card. At this stage, even though your opponent does not have priority, but the opponent has the right to decide if he wants or she wants to keep his or her commander in exile or move it into the command zone. Yes, even though you don't have priority, you still have that right, because that's a replacement effect. So I exiled Kenrith, we put it in exile. The opponent decides if he wants to keep it in exile or move it into the command zone. Let's say he will move it in the command zone. At this stage, Thassa Deep Dwelling resolves the full ability, and the creature, in this case the commander, returns back under your control. Yes, why? And why this happened? Because Thassa Deep Dwelling says, exile up to one other creature you control, then return that creature to the battlefield under your control. At this stage, there is no rule that tells you return that creature while it's still in exile. So Thassa Deep Dwelling doesn't care where the creature ends. Thassa Deep Dwelling cares that you will exile the creature and you will return it back, independently if the creature is in exile, in the command zone, or in any other zone possible. I hope you understand well. I'm going to repeat it. So I get the commander of my opponent with Act of Treason. Act of Treason, I target Kenrit. I get the commander. Obviously I have to return it back because it's the Act of Treason rule. I'm going to blink it with Thassa. Thassa blinks and put the creature in exile. Because it's a commander, the opponent has the right to move it back in the command zone if in exile, but he or she can still leave it in exile. Let's say he move it in the command zone. Thassa Deep Dwelling resolves and the card is returned because Thassa Deep Dwelling ability doesn't care where the cards end. It cares that the cards will be exiled and returned back. If the card remains as exiled, if the card is remained as exiled because the opponent doesn't move it back in the commander zone, then the cards come back. At this stage, being in exiled or being in the command zone doesn't matter, because once Thassa blinks the commander remains under your control, obviously, until eventually it is destroyed, killed, or something else will happen. This is how Thassa Deep Dwelling interacts with a commander. It interacts the same as a creature. The only difference is that the opponent has the right to move it back in the commander zone if he or she wants, but being in the command zone, being in exile, the creature, the commander, will be back because of Thassa ability. Now, last thing. What happens if I control the commander of my opponent? Let's say you're playing, let's say, a 4 commander game. You are 4 opponents, 4 players, and you are killed, you are destroyed, you lost the game. And there are other 3 players playing. Because you lost the game, you're going to return the card to the opponent's command zone, as though the card was destroyed. If, and this is very important, if the person controller, Kenrit, is lost the game, then Kenrit, the return king, needs to go back to the owner of the card, if the opponent lost. So this is how Thassa Deep Dwellings interacts with the commander. I hope you understand well this rule. If not, please leave me a comment below. I will try to answer any rulings possible. I'm not a judge, I must admit I'm not a judge, I'm a very casual player, but I like to do videos with interaction between cards like Thassa Deep Dwelling or other cards released in new sets of Magic the Gathering. Here's the subscription button, subscribe for my channel for more and more videos about Magic the Gathering and the collectible world.